Winx Club is host to a diverse array of magical powers, including ones rooted in things you wouldn't expect, such as technology or music. As such, I figured, why not talk about some of my favorite spells from the series? But given how many there are, we won't be doing the usual worst to best list, but rather talking about the best spells and general powers of each character. Before we begin, I would like to mention to my audience who sticks around mostly for my Winx content that yours truly has written a book. In case you haven't seen it, my debut new adult urban fantasy novel, Disaneribus from the Ashes, is currently available for pre-order and will be released November 16th. Set about 100 years into the future, the world is a mess after the revelation of sorcerers and magical creatures to mankind. The story follows Felix Brasher, an 18-year-old fire magus who wields blue flames and suppressed childhood trauma, given his father was a religious zealot who vanished one night in a mysterious fire. Felix now seeks to become a master sorcerer at the Dragora Institute of Magic in the Medean Empire, homeland of sorcerers, and struggles with his desire for power in order to fill the void left behind by what he's lost. Along for the ride are Rosie, Felix's best friend who needs to learn to stop fixing everyone else's problems, Argent, Felix's love interest and angsty ice boy. I'm a sucker for fire and ice dynamics, okay? And Zara, daughter of Dragora's headmistress, who's a precious little cinnamon roll. There's also Lucas, youngest son of the Medean Empire's most hallowed families, whose family is trash and needs all the hugs. If it sounds up your alley, follow the Amazon pre-order link below, or just order it wherever you enjoy your books. And if you would like more information, you can check out the link to my official author website, as well as read the first 4 chapters there. And if you like what you find, you can also get Chapter 5 by joining my monthly email newsletter. What's in the newsletter? Well, my usual media screamings, but in written form. Now without further ado, let the flames begin. When it comes to fire magic, there isn't much room for creativity in the first place, given fire itself can't really do much other than destroy. And sadly, that reflects in the majority of Bloom's spells, which tend to manifest as generic fireballs and fire attacks that only slightly range in color. Hell, one of her spells is literally called Flaming Attack. That alone is a cardinal sin. It sounds like a placeholder name. That said, some spells do stand out about the rest. Harmonix was great in creating unique effects for each Winx's main attack, and Bloom's Fireblade is probably one of my personal favorites, manifesting as a curved flame lashing at her enemy. Honestly, it looks more like a whip than a blade, but I also like the name Fireblade, so it's fine. Some of her other defensive spells stick out as well, such as Flaming Armor, which is either an adorable heart-shaped shield of blue and red-orange flames, or a literal shield around her body to protect her from fire, or her Firecatcher, which allows her to absorb said flames. And as underwhelming as the majority of Bloomix's spell catalog is, I do love the design of Unfathomable Fire, or Impenetrable Fire in the Italian version. I don't know why the flame is so unfathomable, because it seems pretty understandable as a flaming shield, but I digress. In general, I do kind of appreciate that Bloom's Bloomix spells, God, that's hard to say, tend to be more varied in color, incorporating more blues and purples. Supernova is a bit of an oddity, given the word supernova refers to an exploding star, which you'd think would be more of a Stella spell. Regardless, the violet light effect is gorgeous, and it's probably the most devastating spell Bloom has ever used, and I'd love to see it make a return at some point, especially if it was used in a moment of desperation and we got to see the consequences from all the collateral damage. Like, I just like fucked up shit in my media, okay? Okay. The best of Bloom's spells tend to be ones where she calls upon the power of the dragon flame directly. Things like Dragon Energy, where Bloom summons the spirit of the Great Dragon, or Dragon's Embrace, where Bloom unleashes a wave of flames as a sort of barricade. I do like her Dragon Wing spell, which varies between a generic shield or a means of allowing other people to fly alongside her or breaking people's falls, but I would have liked to see it actually giving people dragon wings made of fire for some visual flair. Same goes for Dragonheart. Believix in general has some of the best spell names, which is a shame as most of them are just recolored energy blasts, beams, or barriers. Dragonheart gets some extra points though for incorporating blue sparks at least. Can we all agree Stella needs some moon or star-based spells in her arsenal? I know, she is no longer the Fairy of the Sun and Moon, having been rebranded as the Fairy of the Shining Sun. But even so, her magic is meant to be based on the stars, and there's so much variety of celestial bodies that can be incorporated into her magic instead of just solar spells. She does have a lot of great sun-based spells, though. Solar Wind, one of her debuts in the series premiere, allows her to throw enemies back with a blast of sunlight with the force of a powerful gust of wind. A similar spell is used in her Enchantix form, referred to in the Nick dub as Scorching Sunwheel, though I'd like to think it's an evolved version of Solar Wind that she should use more often. The original version actually refers to this as one of the variants of Ocean of Light, which, oh my god, I wish this was how it looked all the time. Still, Ocean of Light is a gorgeous name. There's also what the 4Kids dub calls Sunsweeper, where Stella literally sweeps her enemies off their feet with a burst of light by swinging her scepter. God, I miss her scepter so much, and it'd be so cool seeing her use it again to spice up her magic. One of the few times Stella strays from her sun magic is what Bloom calls an anti-sunshine spell during their training scene in Season 3, where Stella ostensibly creates several black holes to disrupt the gravity around Bloom. Or, actually I'm not sure what these are. Are these gravity wells? Okay. I'd love to see some dark matter spells from Stella like this, though. One of the cuter spells Stella has is Sirius Shield, which creates a star-shaped shield to block attacks. There's a similar one called Golden Disc that Cyrenix offers, but it's literally just a slightly different looking Sirius Shield. If you're gonna have generic shields or generic beam attacks, go the Harmonix and Believix route, at least of making them look cool. Dazzling Spiral is probably one of the coolest looking sunbeams Stella has ever had, creating a literal spiral of golden light. Anybody else want to see this as, I don't know, a giant cyclone of light consuming enemies and blinding them as it tosses them about rainbow style? Harmonix also offered Shining Mirror, where Stella summons a handheld mirror to reflect attacks. It fits Stella's love for her appearance and also incorporates how mirrors reflect light into her magic as well, which we definitely need to be seeing more of. It's like an upgraded version of the mirror-named spells from her Charmix form. One of the more creative uses of Stella's light powers comes in the form of her Light Diamond spell from Cyrenix. Again, Stella loves beauty, which includes jewelry, so marrying that to her light spells is a genius idea. Personally, I'd love to see this more as a barrage of light diamonds, similar to Icy's Icicle Barrage type spells. And finally, Stella's Solar Halo. It's only used once, and visually it's pretty unimpressive as a simple golden aura all around Stella that reflects attacks. Still, I do love the idea of her gaining angelic-themed spells, given her magic does technically involve the heavens. Out of all the girls, Flora arguably has the best catalog of spells and how varied they tend to be. That can sound ironic, given how often people joke that most of her spells are just differently colored vines. Looking at you, magical vine grab. But she does have more to offer. Of her vine spells, the best are from her magic Winx form, Golden Pollen, Flowers of the Wind, and Arms of the Earth, where each one involves her blowing air, upon which flies magical pollen, which quickly gives rise to vines around her opponent. And each one is varied. Golden Pollen is usually used for a single opponent, Flowers of the Wind is good for crowd control from a distance, and Arms of the Earth is the strongest in its ability to hold a colossal target, such as Kerbog's Grackthroat form in Season 2. Flower Twister is also an adorable attack, a bit similar to Flowers of the Wind, where Flora literally breathes out a barrage of flowers at her opponent. In the 4Kids dub, it's actually called Ninja Daisies, which is just an objectively amazing spell name, and now I'm imagining her throwing flower-shaped shurikens at her enemies. Venus Gobbler is one of the more creative plant-based spells, where Flora creates massive Venus flytraps to engulf her opponents. And of all her spells used to communicate with nature, I think we can all agree Nature's Symphony is the best, where Flora creates a dramatic wind gust, and we actually hear the voice of nature literally sing to Flora. Eat your heart out, voice of the forest, eat your fucking heart out. Return to Nature allows Flora to use her fairy dust to heal and soothe flora and fauna alike, which I'd love to see be used more often. In general, it's interesting seeing how often Flora integrates her fairy dust into her spells. Glowing Ivy, for instance, does deserve a better name, but it's visually quite impressive, where Flora creates a literal fairy tale beanstalk to break Stella's fall. Enchantix in general has a surprisingly diverse pool of spells that are mostly one-offs or just go unnamed, such as the spell used against the Negatus monster in Season 3. Given all the pink on screen, I'm guessing this is a Cherry Blossom style spell, and I would have loved it to have been actually given a name. There's also Winter's End, where Flora turns Icy's attack into an adorable flock of magical doves. It's a defensive spell with a unique twist that I'd love to see get on Icy's nerves some more. Just in general, Flora's seasonal spells tend to be her most impressive, especially in Believix, which is entirely rooted in the seasonal theme. Winter Rose is the most impressive of the bunch, mostly manifesting as red-purple thorny vines. There's also Autumn Wind, Summer Thunder, and Spring Ring, which excellent names across the board, 10 out of 10. Though I wish Autumn Wind and Summer Thunder had more unique effects, like maybe Autumn Wind being an actual cyclone of petals to sweep enemies off their feet, or Summer Thunder creating an actual thunderstorm that rains down petals. We do get something akin to that with Petal Hurricane, which is one of the most impressive offensive spells Flora has had. There's also Lilac Vortex, which is solely on this list for how it appears in its first use, sending several witches flying and several small vortices of light. Oh yeah, the plural of vortex is actually vortices. No, I don't get it either. English is fucked. My only gripe with this spell is the fact it's not lilac colored, or incorporating actual lilacs, but it's Bloomix. It's a miracle the name alone is good. Again, magical vine grab. Haunts my nightmares still. There's also Spring Shower, which is impressive both times it appears. First, it's used to subdue the tree ants in Season 6, and then to defeat Icy when she dons the power of the Snow Queen. Seeing Flora harness the literal forces of nature to undo evil is truly iconic, and it's nice to see her show just how powerful she truly is. Weirdly enough, even Mythics managed to land on this list thanks to natural camouflage, where Flora is able to blend in with her environment so she can attack Stormy by surprise. Even though Musa's magic is incredibly unique and has so much potential, she tends to have the weakest set of spells for the most part out of all the Winx. My girl deserves better spells, damn it. For the most part, it's her earlier forms where her spells were more creative and visually interesting. Firstly, we have her iconic Sonic Blast, aka Subwoofer Blast in the 4Kids dub, where Musa creates a set of speakers to deafen her opponents. God, I cannot tell you how much I screamed when it returned to Stereo Crash that one time in Season 5. Tiny me was having a field day seeing that come back. There's also Bass Boost, where Musa stomps to release a powerful tremor with her sound waves, and an unnamed disco spell from Season 1, where she makes a disco ball, which unleashes a salvo destroying all the enemies nearby. It is called Boogie Blaster in the 4Kids dub, which... yeah, no, I'm just gonna call it Disco Salvo, thanks. Her Harmonics form had the best spells though, which is impressive given she only had two. First, her reverberating notes, where rather than the generic sound waves she's always stuck with, she attacks with an actual musical staff filled with notes. I'd love to see more spells based on music sheets that she makes, like this one and that one convergence spell with Tecna where they created a barrier made of music notes in Season 3. There's also Diapason, probably my favorite spell ever from her. For those unaware, Diapason refers to multiple things, but here it's a name for a tuning fork, which Musa summons to release a burst of sound waves at her enemy. It made me realize how much I wished Musa could just summon musical instruments of all kinds for her spells. Or just use her flute. I miss her flute. I mean, if Sailor Mercury is allowed to create a harp out of water, then surely the Fairy of Music can summon a lyre, or a guitar, or whatever else she'd like to wreak havoc with. That said, the most impressive soundwave spell Musa has used has to be her one-off Wall of Sound from Sirenix, where she unleashes a wave of not only purple sound waves, but also music notes, a bit like reverberating notes, to overwhelm her enemies. And though Bloomix definitely failed her in the spell department, the one-off Crystal Voice is a cute way to have her singing voice be incorporated into her magic, kinda like her Voice of Sirenix spell. One thing I definitely wish we got more of was the whole power to hear the secret song in each person's heart that she mentions in Secret of the Lost Kingdom. When the Winx graduate and become guardian fairies, each of them mentions how they come into a fuller understanding of their powers, and Musa specifically made that mention of hearing people's songs. I think this would have been interesting, seeing her magic venture into more empathic avenues, given music itself can help build bridges between people. As Musa mentions in the best episode of season 2 all about her family, Fight Me, my girl has the power to hear the soundtrack of literally everyone's life. Fucking use it, please. Like Musa, Tecna deserves better spells, but at least tends to get some more interesting ones more often. Magic Winx was great for this, with things like Firewall, her green barrier that was perfect for combat in allowing her to run to defend her friends, or Compublast, where she throws a microchip at an enemy which detonates shortly thereafter. We know Tecna is one of the gays mostly because she partakes in arson. Arson is known to be a common gay pastime, it's just facts. And again, the unnamed spells tend to be the most fascinating, such as the green mist Tecna used with her Charmix form in Season 2's finale to dispatch some of Darkar's monsters. As much as I love OG Firewall, this feels more like how a Firewall spell would look, as it literally looks like a wall of green fire Tecna is raising to burn away attackers. Another shout out to unnamed spells in that one time she used her Believix powers to make a tractor beam to catch Sky's hoverbike, or the oil delete. It's a bit overpowered because surely she could just pick up anything or any enemy and delete it from existence, but I love it. One-off spells tend to be cooler, like Techno-Magical Union, a spell only used against Mandragora in the first movie. It creates this barrier of electricity from Flora's Vine and Stone spell, Energy of Mother Earth, caging Mandragora inside. Oh, forgot to mention this with Flora, but I also love to see her using earth magic in addition to nature magic. I would like more of that, please. Tecna also has her Storm of Numbers from Harmonix, which is a blast of actual computer code. It also gave her X-ray vision, which actually doesn't work like X-ray vision. X-rays are used to see through objects and can usually pick up people's bones, but this is more like her techno-magic vision from Mythics. That all said, her Magic Winx form had this where Tecna's visor allowed her to analyze her environment, and she was even able to do this on her own using her Enchantix powers in the movie. It lends to her as the team's tactician, and I'd love to see it make a return. One of Tecna's more interesting visual spells is Sirenix's Neon Splice. I don't know why, but it kind of looks like a giant contact lens, but you gotta admit it looks cool. Personally, I'd like to see this used to bounce enemy attacks back at them or redirect energy. We do see more of this in Aura of Sirenix, where Tecna absorbs electricity from surrounding creatures to charge up her own attacks. It's honestly the most interesting of the girl's special Sirenix spells. Particle Net's also a cool spell from her Cosmix form, where Tecna creates a massive hard light barrier to prevent anything from being sucked into a massive black hole. More cool unnamed spells include that time Tecna covered herself in light, flew through her enemy, and made it explode. Gay. Arson. Arson! And can we all just agree Tecna is an amazing inventor as well? So much of her mechanical abilities have been forgotten, and nowhere is that more glaring than the disappearance of her portal device from Season 3. Granted, it does seem a bit pointless given Stella still had the sword ring to teleport them places, but I wish in general Stella had lost the ring to make her feel worse about herself, and explained why she stopped using it, and why Chimera inexplicably had her own staff later on in Season 3. That would have been great for Stella's character, while also giving Tecna an actual reason to create the portal device to allow for interplanetary travel. Winx Club Decoded, once known as Winx Club Dissected, has a bunch of great Winx content that I highly recommend, including one ranking the best powers the show has created. In it, the number 1 spot belongs to Aisha's Morphix, and I 100% agree. Aisha's powers seem to have confused a lot of people, especially given Nickelodeon attempted to rebrand her as the Fairy of Waves in an attempt to connect her more to the sea, despite her still not having many water-themed spells. I would like to see more water-based spells from Aisha, but her domain is largely comprised of plasma and Morphix-based spells, given she originally was the Fairy of Fluids and still is in the Italian version. Her plasma tends to manifest as pink energy blasts, which do tend to get stale, but her Morphix is a pink glue-like substance that allows her to create any construct she wishes. She's basically the Green Lantern of the sea, but make it pink. Most of the time, her Morphix magic is sadly indistinguishable from her plasma spells, but when it gets creative, she can make pulleys, treadmills, staffs, literally anything her imagination can conjure up. Some of her best include her Morphix surfboard, which is a great nod to her water sporty side, as well as her Morphix cloud. Morphix Tidal Wave was an interesting one-off spell to grab enemies and send them flying, like an actual tidal wave, and also a cool variant of her Morphix Wave. A similar spell is her Mystic Wrap from Harmonix, which is solely on this list for that one time she threw Icy into a fucking cliff.
Mystic Wrap!
Aisha is a queen. There's also 13th Seal, which, no, I don't know why it's called the 13th Seal, but Aisha crosses her arms, unleashing an X-shaped blast of what I assume is plasma at her enemies. Or Power Swirl, which varies both times it's used. One is this weird Morphix baton that just spins and hits Tritanus, which is odd. But the infinitely cooler use is in the Christmas episode, where Aisha spins 2 batons to create a whirlpool out of what I assume is either Morphix or plasma. More whirlpool spells for Aisha, please. And also a water spout spell, which I guess we'll get to. Naiad's attack is mostly on the list because of its reference to naiads, which are basically water-based nymphs from Greek mythology. I wish the name got a more unique spell than a generic swirl attack, but with that said, I do like the swirl of plasma, or Morphix, that this attack manifests as. It reminds me a bit of Bloom's Fireblade. Non-plasma and Morphic spells, at least in name, do deserve some shine, such as her Iridescent Blade spell in her Charmix form that she used to beat up Darkar with Stella. The name confused me, given there's no reference to water, aside from the 4Kids name Aquariant Current, which Aquariant isn't a word, but okay then. Some people say it's Aquarius, but I hear Aquariant. I hear the T, and that's the T. But the Italian name actually clears up that it was a mistranslation by Cinelume. The Italian name is Jetti Cangianti. Cangianti means shimmering or iridescent, while Jetti is the plural form of jetto, which means jet, as in a jet of water or stream. So a more accurate name would be iridescent jet or iridescent stream. Basically, she's using a river to beat people up. We also get a one-off river spell in Enchantix, which weirdly is called Morphic Surfboard in the original version. It's also odd because the river is pink rather than blue, which would imply it's a Morphix river? I don't know, but I'd love to see more spells like this where Aisha summons a body of water to beat the shit out of people. Beliefix also come in clutch with them spell names like Andros Hurricane. Even in the Italian version, Ogron says it's a good name.
Uragano di Andros!
Gran bel nome!
It's just a generic energy blast, but given Andros is a planet of mostly ocean, I can only imagine how powerful an Andros Hurricane would be. Another cool spell name that weirdly wasn't water related was Dance of the Tides from Butterflix, which is literally just a generic aura shield. It's similar to Protection of Waves from Bloomix, where what should be an interesting water-based spell ends up manifesting as some generic plasmic looking thing. One of Aisha's most interesting spells is her Magical Water Hug. Oh my god, this name is atrocious. And it's not helping the kidifying of Season 7. You gotta admit, Aisha creating a giant water spout to throw her enemy into the sky is amazing to witness, divine, and we need more of it. Interestingly though, the name actually seems to be Duart's invention. In Italian, this spell is called Imbraccio dell'Acqua, which means Water's Embrace, which is an infinitely superior name. I know this because Imbraccio means embrace. It can mean hug, but it also means embrace. Like Bloom's Imbraccio del Drago, which is Dragon's Embrace. Imagine if they called it Magical Dragon Hug. Ugh. Just in general, the Winx spell catalogs need more diversity, and this need to create entirely new spells with each form tends to leave great spells in the dust. Harmonix's spells deserve to be carried into future forms, and this need to constantly create new spells also just tends to mean new, worse names for the same generic beams and shields. It was actually kind of fun recounting some of my favorites, and honestly, I think I'm gonna do one for the tricks next, or maybe the best convergence spells that aren't just blasting people with the light of friendship. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this from me, then be sure to subscribe and ring that bell for notifications to stay informed of when videos are coming, because YouTube hates creators. And if you would like to support myself and the channel, then you can pledge your support over on Patreon, as well as pre-order my upcoming debut urban fantasy novel, Disinherbus from the Ashes, on Amazon, or wherever the hell else you get your books. I'm the Unicorn of War, and this has been a shit show.